New York, AP. While declaring the opioid crisis a national public health emergency Thursday, President Donald Trump said, "Nobody has seen anything like what's going on now." He was right, and he was wrong. Yes, this is the most widespread and deadly drug crisis in the nation's history. But there has been a long string of other such epidemics, each sharing chilling similarities with today's unfolding tragedy. There was an outbreak after the Civil War when soldiers and others became addicted to a new pharmaceutical called morphine, one of the first of many man-made opioids. There was another in the early 1900s after a different drug was developed to help cure morphine addiction. It was called heroin. Cocaine was also developed by drug makers and sold to help morphine addiction. It cleared nasal passages, too, and became the official remedy of the Hay Fever Association. In 1910, President William H. Taft told Congress that cocaine was the most serious drug problem the nation had ever faced. Over the next century, abuse outbreaks of cocaine, heroin, and other drugs like methamphetamine, marketed as a diet drug, would emerge and then fall back. There are one or two or three wolves ahead of the pack that seem to be the most pressing threat, their jaws closest to you, said David Courtwright, a University of North Florida historian who has written books on you. As drug epidemics. But there's always a pack. The history is that the lead wolves keep shifting. Trump vowed in his recent remarks, "We will free our nation from the terrible affliction of drug abuse." But the grim reality is that these drugs never disappear completely once they've emerged. The good news, though, is that drug epidemics do fade considerably, usually because reduced supply and demand eventually diminish the number of new addictions, experts say. And that history offers some hope for the future. The 1800s, better, and more dangerous, medicines, most new. As drug epidemics over the past 2 centuries were sparked by pharmaceutical companies and physicians pushing products that gradually proved to be addictive and dangerous. In the 1800s the drug was often opium, usually sold as a liquid in products like laudanum, and given to patients for pain or trouble sleeping. Mary Todd Lincoln, President Lincoln's wife, took it for headaches and became addicted. The drug was also used to get high. Opium fiends smoked it in opium dens like those in San Francisco's Chinatown. Reverend Frederick Masters, a 19th-century Methodist missionary, described opium dens in that city as dark, gloomy basements sepulchre-like in their silence save for the sputtering of opium pipes or the heavy breathing of their sleeping victims. The young nation's drug problem grew because of morphine, a painkiller derived from opium through a chemical process that was perfected by E. Merck and Company of Germany. It made battlefield injuries more bearable for Civil War soldiers, but so many veterans got hooked that morphine addiction was sometimes called the army disease. It would get worse. Cocaine and heroin were soon developed, in part to help morphine addiction. Merck introduced cocaine, which became the prime ingredient in a variety of over-the-counter tonics for sinus problems and other ailments. Because of its energizing effects, beverage makers put it in their wines and sodas, and laborers in the South sniffed it to get through grueling work shifts. Bayer, another German pharmaceutical company, began marketing heroin in the 1890s. It often came in pill form, without prescription, and was used to treat the flu and respiratory ailments. But it came to be sniffed, and later injected, by those looking for a more intense high or a substitute for other drugs, whether it was morphine in 1905 or opioid pain pills like Vicodin in 2015. The early 1900s, from cure to curse. In the early 1900s, cocaine shifted from a consumer fad into reviled epidemic, as physicians began documenting addiction problems and police chiefs linked recreational cocaine use to prostitution and violent crime. It led to the first national effort to contain a drug epidemic. In 1914, Congress passed the Harrison Act, which said cocaine and heroin could be sold only as a prescription medicine, not in over-the-counter remedies or in consumer products. Historians believe a growing stigma attached to cocaine use was the main reason the epidemic declined, but they say enforcement of the Harrison Act, and its impact on prices, also was important. Cocaine and heroin got much more expensive when they were driven underground. Drugs were still abused in the later years in pockets of society. Cocaine use was rampant in Hollywood in the 1920s, for example. But economics and politics helped prevent large-scale epidemics for a time. The Great Depression meant few had the disposable income for an illicit drug habit, and World War II decimated the supply of drugs from overseas.